I would like to show you something about counting years on this line. We can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and call each 10 years a decade. So let's count the decades on this line. This is another decade. This is a 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 decade. And this is the decade. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, and 100 years. When we get to 100 years, we call that the century. So this is 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades, 6 decades, 7 decades, 8 decades, 9 decades, and 10 decades. So every 10 decades, you have a century. And a decade is 10 years. A long time ago in Rome, a captain in charge of about 100 men was called a centurion, and he commanded a century of men. Our 10 decades and 100 years has a special name. The name for 100 years is century. We get this name from the story of the Roman soldier. It comes from the Latin word for century, which is centuria, and that is the word century. And the decade is our 10 years.